Hey guys, it's John Tan. Today I'm really excited because we're going to be learning a couple recording workflows on the SSL in Studio 3. So first we're going to go over inline recording on the SSL, and then we're going to go into side-by-side, which is commonly referred to as split, but there's a split mode on the SSL that actually engages inline. So to avoid any confusion, we just call that side-by-side on the duality. So let's go straight into it. So just a bit of context on what we're recording today. Today I'm just taking my laptop out signal and just sourcing that into our studio loudspeakers in the live room, and I have mics positioned at each speaker and then a pair of room mics out there. And the way I'm doing that is I'm taking my foldback B output into my SLS, which stands for studio loudspeakers, and I'm sourcing external B in my foldback B with the level up so that whatever is happening on my external B, in this case it's the iPod cable that's selected, is gonna go to my foldback, which is patched to my SLS. I like to do this during setup so that I can source my iPod to the studio loudspeakers for some vibe music during setup, but also that allows me to talk back to the studio loudspeakers using the foldback B talkback, since my foldback B is patched to the SLS. So before we start doing anything, an important thing to note is that this focus mode button should be blue, and that represents analog focus mode on the duality. If it's not highlighted blue, then it's in Pro Tools control surface mode. We'll go into that in a little bit, but for now let's keep it blue and work in analog mode. So now that we've made sure that our focus mode button is lit up blue for analog mode, we're gonna make all of these channels inline. Right now you can see on the screen they're indicated in monitor path. What we're gonna do is make it so that this says both channel and monitor path in one channel. So one way you can do this is to go into your select mode, which is plus and minus on the SSL, and then you hit select and then hit the button all. Now you can see it says 01 from 01 to 48, and all of my channels are highlighted. So in order to make this an inline console, the first thing I have to do is switch from monitor path to channel path. So the way I do that is go from line to mic on the channel in. And now you see that everything has switched to channel path. Next, I want to make sure that this channel output is set to either input or pre-fade. This channel output represents the path right before it hits Pro Tools. So if I put it on input, then you see my channel output is going to Pro Tools from my input, which is this preamp. And if I put it on pre-fade, then you see that my channel output is right before the fader, which includes all of the processing. This is important if you want processing in the channel path, or if you put it on input, you can put processing on the monitor path. So I'm gonna leave it on input for now so that this channel output comes straight out of the preamp going to Pro Tools. And then I'm gonna hit this split button. And what this split button does is it turns all of the selected channels into inline channels. What might be worth mentioning is that the split button doesn't really make sense because it makes channels into an inline channel and not a split channel. But just remember that the split means the exact opposite of what we think it means. Also, for the split functionality to work, we have to have the channel output from the input or the pre-fade. You can't have the channel output post-fade or set to EFX. Another way you can turn a channel into split mode, which is our inline mode again, is to use the channel by channel split button. This is going to toggle the split mode on a channel by channel basis instead of by a selection basis. So if we hit the split button here on this channel, we can see it goes back to channel path. And if I turn it back on, it goes back into inline mode. So as I mentioned before, I have two close mics up to my studio loudspeakers there, and then two room mics in the back. And those are plugged into tie lines 13 through 15, and I'm going to return them on my duality channel ins 21 through 24. So now I have my close mics on 21, 22 and rooms on 23, 24. My close mics are SM57s and my rooms are 4006s. These 57s won't need phantom power, but these 4006s surely do. So what I'm gonna do is go into my select mode again, clear out of this, plus and minus, and then since it's set to 48 right now, what I want to do is first select 23 with the select button over here. You can see that's highlighted. And then I can press 2, and then that will automatically select my next channel. Another way I can do this is to still go into my select mode and then clear selection and hit select and select 23 and 24. And that way you don't have to sequentially select channels. You can select maybe non-sequential channels like 21 and 20 or 19. So now that I have 23 and 24 selected, I want to turn on phantom power to my rooms. What I'm going to do is keep them selected and then go over to my plus 48 button on the input. Now we see some meters dancing, and that means I have phantom power to my room mics. So what's important to note about inline mode on the SSL is that there's only one set of faders. There's a large fader and that's it. So since this is sending to Pro Tools from my channel output and that's set to my input, all I have to control my input to Pro Tools is my preamps and also my channel trim, which can trim right after the preamp. So I see some meters right now because I'm metering my input. The way I do that is I select these channels and make sure my channel meters are set to input. And if you still don't see meters from there, you can go into your meters menu and make sure you're on analog, not DAW. So I'm seeing meters right at my input. I'm gonna maybe give a little more gain to my close mics. Something like that. And then something like that for my room mics. And I can see that in my Pro Tools session, I'm hitting my tracks, which is good. And if you don't see anything like this, make sure your inputs and outputs are set right. 21, 22 for my close mics, input and output, 23, 24, input, output for my room mics. So now I'm sending signal from my preamps straight to Pro Tools after my channel trims, and I can use my channel trims to trim the signal going to Pro Tools. Now I want to monitor my Pro Tools returns. So that's going to be on the faders here. What I'm going to do is first, I'm going to pan these left and right. And what's great on the SSL is that you don't have to hit a pan button. You just turn this pan knob right above the fader. So I'm going to do that for both stereo pairs. Then I'm going to select all of these channels by going into my select mode again. And I'm going to start on 21. So that's selected first. Hit 2, which selects 22. But I want to go to 24. So I'm just going to hit 24. And it selects 21 through 24 sequentially. And I'm going to assign this to my mix bus. And the way I do that is keep those selected and hit mix A right here. Now you can see that mix A is lit up on the screen. Great, now I'm going to set my fader for mix A. The way I do that is I go into this main buses routing matrix. I go to the column that says mix A and hold that button down and then press the button for fader over here. Now that this is lit up, that's indicating that my master fader is the fader for mix A. If I raise this and I go to the fader for mix B, since I haven't set my mix B fader yet, this is going to go down. Since I already have set my fader for mix A, this is going to go back up. Next, we have to make sure that we're either monitoring mix A or the stereo mix. If we're monitoring the stereo mix and we want to hear mix A, make sure that the stereo mix master level is up. There's a notch at 0 right there. And you don't have to select anything to monitor mix A. But if you do want to monitor mix A with a combination of mix B or mix C, you do have to select mix A and mix B or mix C. Great, so now that we've set the master fader for mix A and we're monitoring our stereo mix, I'm going to turn up my faders. And we're not hearing anything yet because I haven't turned up the monitoring level. So I'm going to do that. And you can hear that we have signal. So what's important to note here is that since our channel output is coming from our input, all of our processing is going to be in the monitor path. So if I turn on an EQ, maybe EQ in, you see my EQ is lit up in my monitor path. In order to change that, I go to pre-fade on my channel output. And then that puts my EQ in my channel path. So now that we've set up an inline workflow for ourselves by selecting all the channels and turning them all into inline and then assigning them to the mix buses, it's worth mentioning that there is a template to get you up and running in inline mode, programmed into our SSL by Kieran Deshaw, who was a previous lead mentor and also the inaugural Al Schmidt Award winner. So shout out to Kieran for that. So let's show you how to access that template. So we're starting with our console zeroed out right now, and I want to turn this into an inline console. What I'm going to do is hit the button that corresponds to SSL, which is right here. Think of this as the top row here, and bottom row there. So I'm going to go into SSL and make sure I'm on a project here called all templates, copy me, copy templates, and then I'm going to make sure that's selected. Sometimes something else will be selected, and the way you maneuver through that is you use this blue encoder here, go to templates up top, and either hit the select button, or you can just press down on this knob. So now that we are selected in that project, we go to TR, which stands for total recall. And you can see we have templates for 0, split, which is our inline mode, and side by side. So I'm going to select our inline mode or split mode, select that, and hit set all twice. And what happens is there will be a bunch of lights that come on and noises on the board that indicate that we're setting channels differently. So set all twice. There you go. And then the way you exit out of this menu is you hit SSL. Now we can see all of our channels are set to inline. We have our filter to input, and everything is set to mix A. As always, let's make sure we put this focus mode in blue for analog recording workflows. If it's not lit up blue, then this means it's a Pro Tools control surface, and we don't want that when we are recording. So let's go ahead and set this up as a side-by-side console. As always, I'm going to go into my select mode, and this time I'm going to select my first channel over here. Now that's highlighted, and I'm going to hit 2 and then select my 24th channel. Now my whole left side of the board is selected. I'm going to turn this from line to mic. Now everything in the left side is channel path. Next, I'm going to make sure my channel output is set to post fade. What this means is that my signal going to Pro Tools, which is the channel output here, is post fader, so that whenever I move this fader up and down, it's going to print to Pro Tools. Next, I'm going to select the right half of my SSL, start on 25, and go to the end, which is 48 down here. And make sure that's on line. So it looks like this is already set to line, which means everything's in monitor path. So I'm going to assign this to my mix bus, mix A right here. And I'm going to turn up my mix bus fader. And the way I do that is I go to this mix A column, hold down the button for that, and then hit the button corresponding to the fader. Then I turn up the fader for mix A. This is my mix A master. Again, if I go to mix B, you see that I haven't set my mix B fader yet, so this fader will automatically go down. And if I go back to my mix A, it'll go back up to 0. Next, I'm gonna make sure I monitor either mix A or stereo mix. If I monitor stereo mix, I don't have to select anything to monitor mix A unless I'm monitoring that with a combination of mix B or mix C. So I'd have to select those for a combination. And if nothing's selected, that's mix A. I have to make sure my level is up. There's a notch right here indicating 0, which is awesome. So I've set up some close mics on the SLS speakers and then some room mics in the back and labeled them as such on the console. So all of my mics are in tie lines 13 to 16, and then I'm going to plug into SSL duality channel ins 21 through 24. That means that my close mics are on 21, 22, and my rooms are 23, 24. And this whole half of the SSL is in channel path, which is what I want. So next, I'm going to monitor my input and select this whole half. which is an oxymoron. So I've selected this whole half, and now I'm going to make sure my channel meters are set to input. And now I can see some signal coming into my SM57s. So I'm gonna give this a little boost in level, somewhere around there. And I'm going to give my 4006s some phantom power. And the way we do that is, again, go into select mode, which is plus and minus. Hit select 24, 23, and 24. And then I go here and hit plus 48. Now we can see that there's also some level going to my room mics. I'm going to turn up my preamps a little bit, somewhere around there. So in Pro Tools, I have my close mic inputs in 21, 22, and they're outputting to 25, 26, and my rooms 23, 24, and outputting to 27, 28. Effectively, this is going to be my channel path, and then this is going to be my monitor path. You can see there's no signal going into Pro Tools right now. That's because my channel output is post fader. So if I raise the faders for my close mic and raise the faders for my room mics, we can now see that there is signal going into Pro Tools. Now, in order to hear it, we already have our monitor path in our mix bus A right there. And mix bus A is up, and we're monitoring stereo mix. Let's uncut this. So if I turn my faders up, we're getting signal. And now I want to pan my stereo pair left, right. I just go to this pan pot right here, turn this left and right. Same thing for my rooms. And now we're monitoring Pro Tools returns. So it's worth mentioning that there's a template for a side-by-side workflow if you want to just get up and running. This was programmed by Kiran Shaw, who was a previous lead mentor at Berkeley. So props to him. So let's show you how to access that. So go into your SSL menu, which is correspondent to this button here. Think of this as the top row and then the bottom row. So SSL, and we go into our projects. Make sure it's on something called all templates, copy templates, and make sure that's selected. If it's not selected, you just scroll up using this encoder and then hit either the select button or press this encoder right here to select it. Then go into TR, which stands for total recall, and select side by side. In this case, it's already selected for us. Again, to do that, you just use this encoder, scroll down and hit this select button or this encoder, and then hit set all twice. Now I'm going to exit SSL, and we can see that all of our channels are set to split mode. On the left side, we have channel path with channel output post fader. And then on the right side, we have monitor path, and it's going to our mix A mix bus. So that's a little about the different recording modes of the SSL. Thanks for tuning in. There will be some other videos in this SSL Quickstart playlist. Be sure to check them out. All right, see you next time. Bye.